The Timothy Omotoso trial is further delayed and has been postponed until Monday to allow the state to obtain an authorisation certificate to centralise all the charges on the indictment. Defence lawyer Peter Daubermann argued that the Port Elizabeth High Court does not have the jurisdiction to hear all the counts contained in the indictment. Omotoso and his co-accused Zukiswa Sito and Lusanda Sulani face a total of 97 charges. 63 are the main charges and 34 are alternatives. Daubermann argued that there were only 7 of the 63 main counts that the Port Elizabeth Court had jurisdiction to hear. State Prosecutor Jayed-Leigh told the court that he had previously obtained 3 certificates from former NPA head Shaun Abrams. Serious concerns were raised regarding the 3rd certificate, as this certificate did not outline the specific charges and had no case number. For more on the story, we cross to our reporter Jayed-Leigh Paulse, who is standing by in Port Elizabeth. A very good afternoon to you, Jade. Omotoso's defence attacking a lot of the procedure and processes in this trial so far.
Yes, well, we've seen the defence lawyer Peter Daubermann really, delaying the process, and the state even went as far as saying this is just a delay tactic by the defence to ensure that, it is delayed and that the witnesses are not called to the stand. But, he spent a lot of time, that being Daubermann, going through the indictment, saying that the Port Elizabeth High Court has no jurisdiction to hear all the charges on the indictment, all the counts. He even went as far as going through a list of the alleged offences and also a list of the places where it took place, mentioning Bloemfontein, the Western Cape, Mpumalanga, Israel, Secunda, and merely saying that the Port Elizabeth High Court does not have the jurisdiction to actually hear all these alleged offences, and that the courts around the country where this particular offences took place should actually listen in on this. But we heard the state prosecutor Ntelwa oppose this, saying that he did write to the former head of the NPA, Shaun Abrams, requesting for a certificate to authorise, and centralise all the charges within the matter. You would know that it's 97 charges in Zinga. It's quite a lot, 63 main charges and 34 alternative. But from the 63 main charges, only 7 can be heard by the Port Elizabeth High Court, and that's what the defence lawyer Peter Daubermann is arguing. Now, before we did adjourn, we heard Judge Irma Skuman saying that she will allow the state to take time to write to the head of the NPA and get another certificate to ensure that the charges are centralised, because apparently the previous certificate that was received by the former NPA head Shaun Abrams, there were inaccuracies with those certificates. The 3rd one did not have all the counts detailed on them. They were very vague, and also it did not have the case number. And we saw the defence lawyer Peter Daubermann saying that they cannot go on that certificate. They need to access a new one. So we saw a lot of back and forth within court this morning, arguing whether it should be centralised, whether the Timothy Omotoso trial should be heard in different courts around the country, seeing that not all the offences happened in Port Elizabeth and Zinga.
Jade, what does this mean for the trial? What's going to happen going forward?
Well, when I was entering court after the tea break, I did overhear the Hawks chatting to the state prosecutor, and he made mention of the fact that they were going to take a lady back to the hotel. Now in Zinga, I think that they actually did have a witness ready to testify today, but unfortunately with all the delays and submissions by the defense, she could not take to the stand. I tried to find out where exactly she was from around the country. You would know that several of the witnesses come from around the country, some from Mpumalanga, Secunda, Johannesburg, KwaZulu-Natal. So I couldn't actually ascertain which witness this was, but there definitely was someone that was going to take to the stand. It is unfortunate that now there was a submission to have the jurisdiction of the Port Elizabeth High Court called into question by the defence, and whether all the counts on the indictment should be heard today. So as it stands now in Zinga, we will resume in court on Monday, and we will hear whether the state was successful in actually, getting getting that certificate from the newly appointed NPA head, and whether the charges on the indictment will be centralised or not. Of course, if they are not centralised, that would mean that they would have to go through the indictment once again, and possibly not all the offences will be heard in the Port Elizabeth High Court.